Okay, so thank you so much for joining the first of Elevate webinars. For those who don't know me, I'm Lucy Findlay. I'm the event director for the event. So we should have been together face to face in London's Excel earlier this month for the 5th edition of Elevate. Unfortunately, COVID has massively impacted both the event sector, but also the physical activity sector this year. So we've made the decision to postpone the 5th edition to June 2021. We hope this gives the sector time to reset and to reopen fully and to then come into a nice boom ready for the 5th event. I'm delighted to be welcoming Elaine Briggs here today from Future Fit Training, who will be chairing our session today, which looks at the fitness professional and their importance in the growth of the sector. A massive thank you to Future Fit for their continued support in Elevate. They are our education partner. They came on board for 2020, and of course they will therefore be supporting us in the lead up to 2021. Elaine Briggs will be chairing the session. She is Director of Education, Innovation and Training at Future Fit, and she'll be joined by 3 other guest speakers. Josh Silverman, thank you so much for jumping in last minute. Josh is Head of Education at Third Space. John Penny was meant to be joining us, but unfortunately they are busy getting their clubs ready, hopefully for an opening in the next few weeks. Marcus Kingswell is joining us here. He is the CEO of EMDUK. They've been doing some amazing work over the last 4 months, supporting the instructors within the sector in these crazy times where everything has shifted to virtual, Zoom, and now, thankfully, some outside sessions as well. And Mark Tweedie, who is joining us in his first month at Community Leisure UK. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark has been come on board with Community Leisure UK as Chief Exec. So thank you so much. A fantastic group of panelists representing the education providers, the public sector, the private sector, and the instructors. So I'm going to pass you over now to Elaine. Elaine will be chairing the session. We had a good old chat yesterday in our prep call. It could be a very long session, lots to get into here. If you've got any questions, please do use the Q&A box. I will be manning that throughout the conversation, and I'll pick some of those questions up towards the end. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy.
Thanks, Lucy, and welcome everybody. So as Lucy says, when this session was planned originally, we were looking forward to being at Elevate, spending a couple of days in the company of our in-distant friends, having maybe putting our feet up with a few drinks at the end of a very long day on the exhibition floor, and having all those invaluable informal chats and debates that make the face-to-face events so valuable to us. But what a difference a pandemic can make. And while the content of this session was put together pre-COVID, we decided to stick with it, as we felt it was even more relevant in the wake of what's happened over the last few months. We still have an active and ageing population, and that's only been further highlighted by the impact of the virus on those people with long-term health conditions. We've heard the Prime Minister this week saying he wants to get the population fitter and happier, and therefore more resilient to diseases such as COVID, although I think we're probably best to leave the discussion around gastric bands for another day. We've also seen an increase in the number of people participating in home fitness and physical activity, many through the use of technology and online workouts. And we want to discuss today, how do we capture these people and play a part in their ongoing active journey. And of course, the financial impact of the pandemic has taken us beyond the original pressures of what we mentioned in the description, which was budget cuts, tight margins, which already created a barrier to recruiting and retaining talent. So is now the time to reset, both in terms of people's perceptions of physical activity and the importance of physical activity, and also of our sector. I think it gives us the opportunity to reevaluate the skills required by fitness professionals in this post-COVID world. As Lucy says, we're bringing together 3 different sections of our sector for this discussion. So we've got community leisure, we've got private operator, and also EMD, the national governing body for group exercise. And in the spirit of trying to retain the feel of a live debate and to combat everybody's webinar fatigue, we won't be bombarding you with any slide decks. We've ditched the PowerPoint. We just want to have a lively informal debate, lots of free discussion, and we hope that you'll contribute with lots of questions which we'll address at the end as well. So lots to get through. I'm going to start by bringing in Mark Tweedie, new CEO of Community Leisure UK, with his initial thoughts. So over to you, Mark.
Hi, thanks Elaine, and hi colleagues. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And although I spend most of the time pushing a pen around a desk these days, I still go back to the days where I could have gone down the fitness. I know I don't look like a fitness professional, but I could have gone down that route. And many times I wish I would have done, because every time I spend time with fitness professionals, I always come back completely energized and enthused, because they are the most energetic, glass half full, innovative, fantastic group of people you could ever meet. I just love being in and around fitness professionals, just fantastic. And quite often they're a kind of under-regarded workforce in the UK. I think fitness professionals do so much for the health and well-being of the nation. And I'm in the business of trying to create the conditions where we can have more fitness professionals, better trained fitness professionals, better paid fitness professionals that can have a huge population impact on health. I'm definitely in the business of health and public health. And I represent, if you like, the public leisure sector, but actually a proportion of that public leisure sector are charitable trusts which run leisure centres. About 50% of the leisure centres in the UK are run by charitable leisure trusts. The other half are either in-house with the council or running different ways. But we do have about 2,700 gyms within the public sector across England, huge amount. And you probably know we've got a workforce of around about 400,000 fitness professionals. So just short of a couple of 100,000, but we work in the public sector environment. So I do have a responsibility to support fitness professionals, and I take that responsibility really clearly. So I'm delighted to be here today. In England, we've got a population of about 56 million, and 13 million of us take our exercise through fitness at least twice every month. So we've got quite a lot of people to go out that aren't taking their activity through fitness. That's a big market opportunity for us, for those as in commercial side of the business, and public sector for me. That's a big opportunity to influence tens of millions of people to take their exercise through fitness activities. And what we've seen over the years is fitness as a activity area grow and thrive, and there's all kinds of different mediums to do it now: community, gym-based, virtually based. And that just says how, I mean, it exemplifies how innovative the sector is, how fantastic it is. Coming back to Elaine's point, I do think, well, now more than ever, the population is in touch with its health and the need to be healthy and resilient. You know, we've seen the tragedies of tens of thousands of people, lose their lives to this horrific virus. And the suffering that this virus will create will go on and on and on for a long period of time, not just to personal health, but economic reasons as well, which will affect people's mental health. So, you know, as fitness professionals, we play a role in supporting people's physical health and mental health. Never more important now and in the future as we try to build personal resilience to this virus, but also to get over the anxieties of an inevitable recession and fear about jobs and security and everything else. So fitness and activity is absolutely key. So I'm in the business not necessarily of monetizing fitness, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You know, money makes the world go round. If we make money, we invest it back into activity and we innovate and everything else. But I'm in the business of ensuring that everybody, success for me is the nation can have an entitlement to be healthy and to participate in high quality fitness activities. So I want to see a public sector leisure centre, high quality in every community, with highly trained fitness professionals in there, providing a state-of-the-art, cutting-edge fitness experience for the population. My challenge is, how do I make that accessible to the public and affordable? Because if we're going to have high-quality people in there, then they need to be paid respective good salaries. They need to have the high-quality training, and that all costs money. So the economic element is difficult. But I'm about providing that entitlement. And if we want to make a big difference to the nation's health, we have to work with the people that are furthest away from being active. And there's a big challenge about how we get those people active, because these aren't the 15% of the population that will drop in and out of the gym as and when. These are the other 85%, who most of which won't even be contemplating going to the gym, or won't be contemplating doing some group exercise. So how do we create a hook to bring them in? And that's down to the fitness professionals and the offer that's provided, but also the economic barriers to that offer. Not everybody can afford to go to a high-end boutique gym. Not everybody can afford to have a high-end personal trainer. How do we make that entitlement become a reality? So part of my work, and I think I'll come back to this later on, is how can we position the fitness world within the health economy and attract commission services from public health to provide a subsidy, so we can have high quality fitness instructors getting paid decent salaries with decent career prospects and good training, which is really key to provide that entitlement to the population. I think I've talked enough there, Elaine, so I don't know whether you want to move on or ask me a follow-up question, or wait till later.
I just wish there was an opening for the health minister. I think that would be a fantastic sort of introduction, and very, very passionate, which is, you know, one of the reasons I love working in the sector. Everybody is very, very passionate about what they do and so keen to make a change. And you know, you're right, there's a huge percentage of the population who we don't reach, who we know that we've never been very good at reaching, and maybe this is a point where we start to see more people out in the parks with their families, cycling, jogging, you know, flying kites, running around, maybe finding some online fitness classes, whatever it is that they want to do, and they've become more active during this period. So how do we capture them? So I know Mark is exercise, movement and dance group instructors. I mean, they span the local authority, you know, that their own private classes, and very high-end boutique and personal training studios have a really important part to play. Really, exercise has been a very, very small part of it, really, isn't it? The job that they've got is, and the skills they have to have, is quite huge. Do you want to maybe come in there?
You're right, Elaine, and thanks for the introduction. Yes, the group exercise instructor works across a whole range of different settings. Some are employees working for the private sector gyms. Others might be employees of the leisure trust that Mark has been talking about. And there are others who are self-employed, who run their own classes and might be actually doing some sessions with either of those other settings. So EMDUK is a workforce NGB. So we're looking after the instructors to help them be the best they can possibly be in all of those different settings, and with an end goal of creating healthier communities through group exercise. So we're totally engaged with the health agenda and totally engaged with the workforce agenda. And then the next question comes, I suppose it's back to the sort of exam question of this seminar, which is, are fitness professionals really at the heart of growth of the sector? Now, if I've been delivering this seminar in person at Elevat, you know, and not in a COVID world, I would have said, well, absolutely, this is a people business. It's the service sector, and the interaction between an instructor and their participants is key in motivating and encouraging and sustaining physical activity within those class participants. The report Group Fitness in Europe 2020 found, not surprisingly, that the fitness instructor is the main person who influences attitudes and behaviours amongst their customers. So we know the critical role of the fitness professional in sustaining that, sustaining those levels of participation. But the questions that have come up over the years, one is that the workforce needs to be more prospect focused. Now, often people say customer focused. I think the workforce is already very customer focused. They engage very, very well with the people that come into their settings. But what we've got to think about is, who are the prospects? Who are the people who are not coming into those classes currently, that might be intimidated by coming into a gym or a class setting? And those are the people who are probably at most need of physical activity and health improvements. So I'm sure we'll return to that later. But if you think about that as being prospect focused rather than customer focused. I think it's a useful differentiation.
Thanks very
The
much.
second, the second point on that is just that to support the workforce so it's recognised as professional. For example, which is a very long established professional career structure, means we don't get the credibility that we need. So just the last point before I wrap up is, of course, we are here in June 2020, we're in a COVID situation. And so to talk about growth for the sector, well, that's not really the priority. The priority now is about survival. And that's going to need a new way of working. It's going to need changes of government policy and investment. And fundamentally, it will need our venues to be open, because we cannot sustain the levels of activity we've got in lockdown. We cannot sustain them. They need to be grown and maintained through people going to physical venues in addition to their online experience.
Thanks for that, Marcus. And I think that would be, all really valid points, especially about the perception of not being professional and how that impacts on our work with other sectors, specifically the health sector. Don't want to get into a debate right now, a political debate about, the late opening of our facilities, but, clearly there is an area there to sort of talk about how important is the health and fitness and physical activity sector. Are we recognised as being an important part of the health sector, and if not, why not, and what can we do about it? So maybe a good time there to bring in Josh, who's been waiting patiently in my corner. You're probably in the middle, to be honest. So if you would just like to give an overview of your thoughts, and also to maybe answer on Marcus's point of how do we change the perception of our profession as being a profession, and making us more credible, enabling us to work with healthcare professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest stance in all of this is that currently, when we look at, do we have a profession at the moment within our industry, coming from a personal training side of things, we don't. We don't have the foundations that are there to call ourselves a profession and to call ourselves a long-term career, which ultimately impacts clients and it ultimately impacts the industry pretty badly as a whole. If we look at the churn rates of personal trainers, for instance, it's unbelievable. The amount of people that enter the industry and leave is much higher than anyone that stays. And that's generally speaking because of the operators. There's no other excuse to give there. If I looked at my role, and my role at Third Space as head of education is more head of development, but I kind of see it as head of progression for personal trainers. What people need to see in order to be retained is not only job security, good pay, good facilities and good conditions, but they want to see themselves, developing within their own role, seeing career prospects within the same role. And not only that, but feeling like they're valued. And if you're an operator that, charges X amount of rent for someone and then they don't develop them, they don't see career prospects, then yeah, there's no question about it. That personal trainer is not going to feel valued and not going to feel professional or in a profession. I think going into the next few years, what people are really, really going to value when it comes to personal trainers is not just exercise knowledge and knowledge on health, but it's life experience. They want to know that that person knows the situation that they're in. Okay, it's easy for a personal trainer if you work in a gym all day to train. Well, actually, the person's going to go, do you know what it's like to have 2 kids? Do you know what it's like to work in the legal sector, etc.? We're never, ever going to attract people that resonate with that part of the industry. The part that Third Space work with, we work with very well-to-do people within London. Generally speaking, they've done well in their career. They now want to play hard and they want to work hard at the same time. We're never, ever going to be able to deliver what we're trying to deliver, and that's the best personal training product in London and England and hopefully the world, if we haven't got people that can, talk the talk with the people that they're working with, or actually be able to connect with them. And the reason why we're able to get those PTs is very, very simple. We employ our PTs, we pay them pensions, we give them holiday, and we actually value them in regards to our pay structure and our development structure. If I was to lose my job tomorrow at Third Space, fingers crossed that doesn't happen, I'd probably be made redundant throughout the whole industry. My role is very unique as head of education for a large operator. There's not many that's like that, and that's the problem, not just for me, but for the industry themselves. not many PTs are seen as being a serious career and a serious profession. So we can't, at the moment, in my eyes and my vision, put them in a situation where they're taken seriously when they don't take their own selves and career seriously at this moment in time.
Okay, that's a good point. Well, pointing the finger there at the operator, so I'll be interested to see what Mark comes back with there in a minute. But yeah, I take on board those points. So are you saying that the workforce at the moment, in your eyes, personal training workforce, don't have the skills to be able to support public health professionals? Do you feel that they don't have the capacity, or they don't have the training, or they're just kind of only working with that small 15% of people who are already in gyms and are already committed to being active, and therefore is there an ask for them to have many more skills across more of a health offering?
I think two answers to that. One would be that at the moment, PTs, they probably do have, a lot of them will probably do have the knowledge, and they do have the inquisition to even find the knowledge if they needed to help in regards to public health. But I think the biggest problem with that is they're not given the opportunity. And that's because, generally speaking, if we are looking at a lot of the models when it comes to employment, shall we say, within personal training, it's not really about the personal trainer delivering a service. It's from a lot of operators, and I'm not saying this is Mark's operation, but from a lot of operators, the personal trainer is the client to the gym. The personal trainer is the income to the gym. So they're not given that sort of level of scope to do that. But secondly, I think as well, there's going to be a lot of personal trainers out there that potentially don't want to go down that realm. And this is where we now need to maybe path out what roles are there. And I think Mark kind of started to allude to it as well, to say, okay, not every personal trainer needs to know, let's say, at the high levels of mental health. It might not be something that they want to learn. But this is now where new career avenues might be able to come from it. This is where new pathways can be chosen, but they need to be chosen first before development can be highlighted. There's no point in putting every personal trainer through a load of courses that they may not enjoy, or it's not their passion. I think this is where now, after this whole epidemic, we can see an opportunity to go, right, they are valued, PTs are, we can make a profession, but we also need to look at, well, what are the avenues that we can start creating for these PTs?
It's interesting, isn't it? And you raised a good point there with the avenues. I'll bring Mark in a second. But yeah, is it one size fits all, or as you say, is it more of a specialism? If you push people down a route of, you need to know this about mental health, you need to know this about, stress or sleep or smoking cessation or whatever it may be, then maybe that's not the way to go, and they want to specialise in something. Having said that, the counter argument, I guess, is something that I've always argued for, is that fitness is only a very, very small part of what any fitness professional does. With, not just personal trainer, the fitness, the technical element is just one element, and more and more I see the role of a fitness or physical activity professional or practitioner, group exercise instructor, to be a small part of fitness, and the rest of it is, I was likening it a little bit to the role of a hairdresser, in the fact that you're the person that people go to for advice, for signposting, for a bit of an offload, and to have some, not high level, so we can talk about mental health, not high level, but a certain understanding of issues and problems that people have, and know where to signpost them to, or to help them, to guide them and support them, I think would be a good basis for any fitness activity professional. But that's my thoughts. So can I go to Mark first, and then we'll come back to you, Marcus, if that's okay with your thoughts? Oh, you're on mute. You're back.
I always do that. I'm so eager to talk, I forget the mute button. So yeah, really good listening to that. Really good. Thanks, Josh and Marcus. I think it tees something up really nicely, actually, and that's this word called personalisation. And actually, what do we mean by personalisation? So I'm kind of trying to think of how I can disagree with you on stuff, Josh, but I'm finding it difficult at the moment. But maybe we could flesh this one out. So by saying we've got a segment of the fitness workforce that are personal trainers, are we actually saying everybody else doesn't offer a personal service? So are we saying group exercise instructors don't offer a personal service? Are we saying gym instructors don't offer a personal service? So yeah, point to debate, because what we know is that increasingly people want a personalised service, whether they're coming in to see a personal trainer or whether they're having a chat with a gym instructor on a gym floor or whether they're doing a group. They want it tailored to them. They want differentiation. They want all fitness instructors to recognise their personal needs. And I think that's where you were going, Elaine, with, well, you know, is this what we need to equip the knowledge and skills and understanding of fitness instructors with, that they can respond to individuals in terms of their personalised need.
Yeah,
so this
it's for me,
notion
sorry
of
to
a
interrupt, it's
personal,
looking at the person holistically, isn't it? I
Yeah.
think that's the part that I'm trying to get across.
yeah. So this notion of a personal trainer and the terminology we use is maybe something we need to slightly change and tweak a little bit. And the other thing that I know about fitness professionals is that they are all incredibly, they're personally accountable. They want to do their best. They're very competitive. So why wouldn't they want to go out and learn more in order to be the best they can be? So why wouldn't they want to say, well, actually, I want to know about how to support people with mental health. I want to know about how I can adapt and prescribe exercise for people of all ages, disabilities, ethnicities, and people with long-term conditions. What I want to do that, and I want to be able to access that at a point in my career at the right time. But I've got a career development goal, and I want to be able to go through that pathway. And I've got a goal for myself to be the most equipped and the best I can be in terms of my craft, my work, and things that I'm passionate about. And why would they want to do that? Well, not just because they're competitive, because I can see a point coming in the future where the marketplace is going to require that type of individual. So if you've equipped yourself, you are going to be highly attractive in the employment marketplace. And coming back to my initial point about the public sector, what I can't do is go and work with our members across the countries that operate 2,700 public sector gyms and say, let's put a pricing model in which is really exclusive so we can bring people in and pay them really high wages and attract the best people. I've got an economic challenge about how I get the best people, not to work for Josh, but to come and work in the public sector so it can provide it at a price point where everybody can afford it and they're getting a high level service. That's what I need to do. And I think that's why I'm very keen to position this whole thing in terms of public sector leisure within the health commissioning marketplace so that we can get a fraction of the money that the NHS spends on treatment into prevention to support people that really need us in the public sector so they can walk through the door of the leisure centre and get a high quality personal service no matter what their age, ability and condition.
So when we're thinking of, thanks Mark, when we're thinking in terms of workforce then, are we saying that we do need different pathways? So for example, the people that Josh is talking about coming on board, is that a different person and a different pathway to the person that you're talking about coming on board and that kind of health activator? Is that a different training pathway as well? Marcus, I don't know what you think in terms of group exercise there.
Yes, I think, well, there are a range of occupations and job roles that people choose within the sector at the moment. And I think those we need to work out what the next generation of those will look like. You know, if we're going to integrate some of these health-related skills into job roles, that actually may be a new kind of product coming out of it. But it's interesting when you look at the research, a report that UK Active issued a couple of years ago with Technogym said that 74% of the public will be comfortable receiving health advice from an exercise and fitness professional. That includes personal trainers and group exercise leaders. So there's a high degree of public support for this. What we've got to make sure we're doing correctly is either are those professionals giving professional advice to their customers, or are they signposting it? And there's actually quite a significant difference there. So we've got to work out that particular skill set. I'd like to pick up Mark, who did a great intro for me, actually. He said he wanted to help the professionals be the best they can be, which is actually our mission statement, to help Group X instructors be the best they can be. And that's what we want to do. So it's going beyond, if you like, the just having the qualification and getting out there and practicing, but what's the stuff that makes this a great experience for a member of the public? but also meeting other agendas. So we're talking of health, these might be things that the participant doesn't actually realise they need. And that's where the health commissioning role comes in. What can we do that's helping the health of the nation, that's giving the right kind of inputs, but it may not necessarily be the things that the customer realises that they need from the health professional. So that needs to be built into it as well. The other point around, I think Josh's point, which is customers are increasingly looking to work with a fitness professional who has life experience and has been through similar challenges as themselves. I think the point here is around the diversity of the workforce and making sure we have the widest possible representation within the physical activity workforce. Again, the evidence shows that people like to be around others that are similar to them. They want people who've had similar life experiences. And while there is a preponderance of younger males around PT in their early 20s, as you look at the demographic, and we've got the research to back this up, as people age, then the instructors actually start to change their career and focus on different types of exercise and patterns. So we engage with a lot of female instructors who are in their 50s and 60s, for whom a dance fitness type discipline is what they're interested in. So I think it's important to look at this diversity. That's age diversity, its background, its ethnicity, its cultural and religious beliefs, so that there is that genuine, proper, close engagement with participants, the building up of trust, the ability to share knowledge in a trusted way. But I come back to that point, we need to be very careful about the extent to which a fitness professional is imparting health advice or is signposting to others.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we need to get those skill sets right, don't we? Yeah, very, very important. When does, support and signpost then become, you're not a nutritionist, you're not a mental health expert, you're not a counsellor, but equally, and I think the report you mentioned, that was going the distance, was it, with the RSBH and Technogym? Yeah, a couple of years old now, but I wish they would redo it actually, because some very, very interesting stats came out of there about the lack of trust within fitness professionals. People would be much more likely to go to their hairdresser or their GP or their chemist or whatever to talk about a number of health issues, anything outside of fitness, which would include things like mental health or issues with stress, sleep, gambling, whatever it may be, those lifestyle issues. And I was starting out in the sector, I was a lifestyle consultant, and although it's a lot of years ago now, we were taught to be that holistic person. We were taught to be it's more about you as a person in the sector. I think we discussed, as we prepared for this yesterday, was to take the equipment away, take the facility away, and it's the professional, it's the person that's left, and that's the person that clients and the public will engage with. I'd be interested to know, Josh, can you see a time when your PT sort of client demographic becomes more diverse? I know at the moment, you're talking to people who are got good disposable income, they're able to come in, they take care of themselves, they want to get better and better, and they tend to be your client base. Can you see a time where that changes and this more diverse population that we're talking about needs a more diverse type of trainer?
Yeah, I mean, that was our main kind of client base. However, if you did come into third space, you would see a massive diversity in regards to our clientele. And it's interesting because even, some of the languages that some of you guys are using, and I know you didn't want everyone to agree, and I think we won't now, which is good. But
That's good, lively debate, that's what we need.
If you come into third space, we have nutritionists, we have osteos who are personal trainers. They're not in there as a PT. We've even got doctors who are not a doctor, they've got PhDs, etc. They are working as a personal trainer. And that's because third space attract these type of trainers, shall we say, and these type of professionals, because of the way in which we reward them. And I think the biggest key word here is value, right? Our PTs see the value in what we do. And talking to Mark and going back at Mark with stuff, it's, necessarily when it comes to a price point and when it comes to affordability, sometimes these personal trainers and these professionals want to feel valued. So if you want to deliver a world-class service, regardless of the cost, regardless of what your means are, if they're able to feel valued within the industry, then ultimately they're going to be the people that champion that message for the company and ultimately champion the message for health. until we get the operators to change the way in which they view their workforce, i.e. personal trainers, as not being valued, they're never going to be a good workforce. They're never going to be a long-term workforce, because ultimately they're not going to stay in the company, etc. Now, also, I think with that will come what we need. And what we really need is the respect from the medical side of it as well. There's never going to be any change from us if we're not taken seriously outside of fitness. We know what we do. A lot of people don't. Like, if you asked all of my family, what does a personal trainer do? They'll probably say they count reps or something stupid like that, right? But we know what we should be doing, and we know what the professional should be doing. However, medical and those sort of avenues of allied health, they probably look into us and go, well, you fight amongst yourself. You have all different things amongst yourself. There's no reason why we should kind of take you seriously sometimes. And I think with that, you know, asking all of our personal trainers to do one thing and go on education is totally wrong. We don't get that in any other industry. You go to a lawyer, they start very broad and then they specialize. You go to a doctor, they start as a GP potentially, they learn medicine, and then they get referred on. I think, again, one of the biggest things of our industry is people are scared to refer, people are scared to build networks, because we tell them, you know, you should know everything about this, about that, or little bits about that. They should be able to push on and be able to refer to people. If we can make these streams and these pathways, they'll have clear signposts in where they can go without having the knowledge. Now, again, we can't force PTs to go, you must go learn about mental health, or you must go learn about nutrition, because it might not be their passion. If it's not their passion, they don't enjoy it and they learn it, they're never going to come across as someone who cares about it. And if they don't care about it, their clients are never going to listen to them and never going to change. So again, I think the biggest things here is we need to look inside of ourselves as the industry and go, how are we taking our professionals seriously? Are we treating them as a professional, and are we valuing them with the means that we have? That's one. And then two, are we portraying an image, because of all this, that medical and allied health can take us seriously and take our word that, no, we're training our people right. We're not just, you know, paying them an hourly rate and they're doing what they want on the gym floor. We're actually going to see what they do. We're assessing them. We're making sure what they're doing is stringent and is robust. And then thirdly, we're allowing these pathways, and we're not just trying to make all of our PTs and all of our fitness professionals, you know, just a jack of all trades. We're actually allowing them to master their craft. They all have to go through some form of training, of course, in order to understand those signposts and refer. But they're also doing stuff that they enjoy. They're doing stuff that they're passionate about. They get to pick the stream that they work through. This is what we do at Third Space. We have to go to all of our elite PTs. And what I really pride about our elite PTs, and these are probably one of the top earning PTs within London and one of the best within the world. If you ask one of them about nutrition, they'll go, do you know what? That's not really my area of expertise. I tell you what, though, I've got someone who can work with you on that. But however, if you want me to work with you with strength and conditioning or cycling, I can do that. And I think that's where we need to go. We need to understand that specialization is not saying I don't know. It's actually saying this is what I'm passionate about.
I get that, actually, and if I could just make a couple of points before I sort of transfer on. Yeah, I do understand that that part of the argument. You know, we're not specialists, and sometimes there are areas where we want to specialise in. I think what I would probably disagree with you on is the kind of the starting broad. So yes, in many professionals we start broad, we learn about all sorts of different things, quite comprehensive, you know, training qualifications, you know, usually out there working in the job that you've got to do. And if you're a health professional, yeah, and then you might specialise into surgery, or you might specialise into osteo, whatever. I don't believe we have that in this sector. If I put my training hat on and take my chair hat off for just a second, I don't believe that our broad base is broad enough. It could be, and I think then, Josh, you could actually then have that opportunity to go, right, I know enough about all of these things to be able to hit all of these demographics, and then if I want to, I can specialise over here, and if someone wants a high specialism over there, I can signpost across. So I think there is that, but I do think there's an argument for us to get our basics right, if you will. And I think, yes, you're absolutely right that there seems to be, because we can't quite decide ourselves what a personal trainer is, you know, what a fitness professional is, what a community professional, whatever it may be. I do think that we're not taken seriously, you know, for that and many of the reasons by the health sector. Sorry, go on. Go on.
Yeah, no, just on the broad thing, just really quickly,
Yeah.
I won't take too much time.
That's all right.
I think, you know what, as training providers, you guys and all the training providers out there have got a very, very hard job, where you're getting people qualified, technically speaking, textbook qualified. And I think, you know, personal training and fitness, as everyone knows, is kind of like a driving license, right? We learn about it on the job. So this is where I would put the onus of that broad stuff on the operators to be like, look, we're going to teach you our way and our ethos of training and give you some more broader sort of topics, which is exactly what we do at Third Space. And, you know, looking at level 2 and looking at level 3, of course, this could be a whole nother debate of whether it could be changed and we could get all the syllabus, and it could be 100%. But I think as well, that the fault in that doesn't lie with the educators and with providers like yourself. I honestly believe that if you're with a provider, if you're with an employer, as a fitness instructor that does not develop you in their way and develop that skill and hone those skills in to go, this is what you learn, by the way, here's application, and we can broaden that knowledge more, I would look further afield to someone else. But I would say 100%, but I think that also lies at the responsibility of the operators out there as well.
Okay, well, let's bring an operator in then, Mark. So obviously taking into account everything that Josh has said, it's a very different landscape, isn't it? You know, that you're looking at. People aren't coming in to pay high-end money for personal training who will then refer to a qualified nutritionist or a qualified osteopath. And we do need to be working with the health sector and with customers across all sorts of different demographics. So I know you've mentioned before your passion for this allied health professional role and the service that can bring to the sort of the demographic, the population that we're talking about. So do you want to just come in there with your thoughts?
Yeah, just to start off, I think that exercise for the sake of exercise, fantastic. You know, so there should be people out there just taking people into parks or wherever, putting some music on, getting together and just doing it for the hell of it and enjoying it, you know, and not saying, how's your mental health, you know, how's your conditions, you know, just get out there and have a blast and really enjoy it. Absolutely fantastic. You know, that needs to continue. And we don't need to put barriers in people's way in terms of having to have a high level qualification to be able to do that. You know, there needs to be entry-level qualifications where people can just come and make people smile and get them active. But if we want a seat around the health table, if we want a position within the health economy, and what I mean by that is the vast amount of expenditure that the health economy has, huge, and we know it's under pressure, but part of the reason it's under so much pressure is because the amount it has to spend downstream at the treatment end, where it could spend less upstream at the prevention end and stop the treatment spend, everybody's happy, okay? And what the term I use, by investing upstream in prevention through physical activity and everything else and targeting those groups that are most inactive, you get more and better outcomes for less public money. So that's the pitch for me in leisure as a provider. And what I want to see is I want to see a national health service, but I want to see a national wellness service. And I think our national wellness service can be delivered by the 400,000 fitness professionals out there if we get them appropriately qualified, those that want to sit around the table with allied health professionals. And it's starting to happen. And the key thing is that if we're in the health economy, we're going toe to toe with clinicians, they want evidence. They want to say, how do I know you're having an impact on these conditions or stopping these people coming into hospital? How do I know that? Prove it. And how do I know that you are safe and that you deliver with quality? So that comes back to accreditation and training and quality assurance, which as a health clinician, as a health practitioner, you're absolutely evaluated to death and you need to be qualified to death. So if we want to be in that health economy, we need a proportion of our workforce to be there as well. Now, it is happening already. We've got nearly 100 people on the call. I'm sure there's some from Greater Manchester. So within Greater Manchester, there is a service called Prehab for Cancer, which is all the leisure providers in Greater Manchester. There's 12 of them come together. They had a conversation with the Health and Social Care Partnership in Greater Manchester and said, look, we want to mobilise all our resources across Greater Manchester, across the 2.8 million people that live there, all the leisure centres, so people who are diagnosed with cancer or are recovering from cancer can go through an exercise pathway which is absolutely delivered with quality and is evidence-based, is referred in from clinicians, is supported by the experts at Christie's Cancer Hospital, and is evidence-based. And that is happening. And that is happening. It's really, really successful. And those people are highly qualified. They come through the fitness professional route, and they want to be, and quite rightly so, they want to be labelled as allied health professionals. They want that status, and they should be paid accordingly, because they're making a big difference in terms of improving outcomes for cancer patients pre and post surgery. Massive. Now that same team of people now, because they've got the appetite of the NHS and they've got they're recognised, are putting in an application to do a COVID response service. And this is about how they're going to work with people that are recovering, are in rehabilitation from COVID, because what's coming out now is that respiratory capacity can be severely compromised for people that have suffered with COVID. And, you know, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people that are experiencing, you know, suboptimal respiratory capacity, as well as muscle wastage and all the other things. So again, great opportunity to put our fitness professionals at the heart of that with the appropriate qualifications as allied health professionals, working alongside clinicians, having a referred pathway. And I did note, Elaine, I know it's really hard to keep up, but we've got a couple of comments, quite a few on the chat box coming in.
Yeah.
And there's been a few comments about, you know, how do we kind of position ourselves better within the health economy, within the health world? What qualifications do we need? And also, how can we make sure that we're delivering against inequalities?
Yeah.
Which I'll just wrap up with, but because the most inactive people are usually those that are in the most deprived areas. So this comes back about it being an affordable offer and an entitlement. And again, you know, can we get some commission and some support for the NHS to fund that? So like Josh says, you know, we can pay the appropriate rate of money to our fitness professionals to deliver it. That's absolutely key. Also, when you look at things like the BAME communities and the disabled community, you know, huge inactivity levels and huge health issues, you know, and when you go into a leisure centre or a gym, and if you're disabled or you're from a minority group, does the offer really spring out at you? You know, are there the wrong models there? And I know I've gone away from the first point about allied health professionals, but I want to make it. And we are seeing a lot of more forward-thinking progressive gym and leisure centre providers that are presenting themselves with that imagery. And I think Josh mentioned this before in terms of how we present ourselves as a sector. And that's really, really important, again, if we want to be seen and recognised by the health sector and receive investment.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mark. Sorry, I was just trying to read a few of these that are coming in as well. And there's loads coming in thick and fast. So we need to make sure that we make time for those in the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes. But I just wanted to actually come back to you, Marcus, because we've had quite a lively debate there. Can I bring you in now? And you've got a couple of points to make.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you know, Mark's made some great points there about the National Wellness Service and the role of physical activity in prevention. And, you know, if you've been going to Elevat and LIW and all these events over the years, that's been the message for 20 odd years, isn't it? We're all signed up to that. We're preaching to the choir to a certain extent, but we're not making the changes. Apart from individual examples like Manchester, we're not making the changes nationwide. What I think we have done is we've got many of the building blocks in place. So, for example, we have a professional standard for group exercise that specifically talks about skills and knowledge around health improvement. That's written, that's documented, that's signed off. We now have a professional pathway and membership through SimSpa, practitioner membership, which culminates in chartered status. The first time ever for practitioners that this has been available, and the first people are going through that process at the moment. We have got a choice of qualifications being offered by training providers. We've started offering quals on mental health and nutrition, which have been snapped up through this lockdown period by group exercise professionals who want to broaden their range of skills. So that's them choosing what they want to do. And I think it's right that we allow people to choose, and they're going to do that. However, if we want to move it from that level of foundation stones that we've got to actually making a bigger difference, it's going to need more leadership from the sector. And I put myself in this category, and my colleagues on the call here today, to show, well, where does this really head? What is the route, and how do we start to get those health commissions which, you know, this is not straightforward stuff. We've hit these barriers again and again over the last 20 years, actually. The lack of credibility of our sector. We've previously not had professional standards. We've not had chartered status. We've been seen as some of the qualifications are too lightweight, but I feel like we've actually started to chip those things away. So this needs, through COVID, it actually presents us with an opportunity to come back and pick up on those exact health requirements that Mark said. Respiratory problems, muscle wastage, we have a solution to that, but it will need someone to pay. These types of intervention will be more expensive than your regular PT session. They will be more expensive than your regular group exercise class. So you can't expect the public to pay for this every time if they're the ones least likely to access it. Final point I just wanted to make around areas of deprivation, which are the ones that need the most support. Where group exercise has a particular strength is it can be delivered in non-sports venues. And that goes on to a large extent. So community centres, school halls, village halls are, in fact, they're often their biggest community use is group exercise. And that takes place in areas which don't necessarily have access to a gym or a leisure centre. So we've got to think of that. You think of the map of the UK, the deprived areas, the places where the gyms and leisure centres don't go. You do have community venues and you do have group exercise taking place. So there's an opportunity there to use Group X to reach these people in greater numbers, but it will need investment. It will need it to be commissioned, and that's the next, you know, really, really chunky piece of work that we've got to grapple with.
Yeah. Well said, and it will need collaboration, it'll need leadership, like you say. We've already made great inroads with Simspare and with different pathways, but I think now is the time that we need to look again, revisit, you know, refresh, and really kind of take advantage of this opportunity now to kind of set the reset button, really. So okay, I'm just looking at time now, and I'm keen for everybody to have their say before we look at questions. So I guess an important point there that Marcus Mark's made regarding post-COVID, what does this all look like? What if I pose each one of you a question, how would you like to see the sector change as a result of the pandemic? So probably summing up most of your main points, and what positives can we take away, what can we learn, and how can we move forwards? I don't know who would like to go first on that, or shall I choose somebody? Okay, let's Josh, can I go with you first? So how would you like to see the sector change as a result of the pandemic? What positives can we take, and how do we move forwards?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, look, we need to coming out of COVID, look at public opinion on our industry as well as other industries' opinion on our industry. And the way we do that, if I haven't already said it, is by looking at what we're doing in order to ensure that our professionals are valued, developed, and they stay within the jobs, and we keep our best PTs and our best professionals. So that's the number one key for public sort of vision, rather than churning these professionals in and out of this grinder. And then secondly, I think the positive against this is shown just how resilient professionals are and fitness professionals are within this pandemic. I'm seeing so many on Instagram, so many on Zoom doing what they can for their clients. And it just shows that we can adapt and that we are professional. And not only that, but the amount that people are now going to place a value on just movement and just exercise in general for everything, you know, be it mental health or be it the way they look. They don't need any more a professional to say, well, imagine how you feel if you couldn't exercise. They know now. So I think, you know, people are going to value it more. They're going to value exercise more. So now's the time for the industry to value our professionals more and make sure that we can deliver that service that everyone really wants to do. But we're not going to be able to do that until the industry starts changing from the inside, in my eyes.
Thank you for that. So I think the professionals really at the heart of the sector, and you know, we need to ensure that we have laid the way for them to know which pathway to go down, what the development looks like, and really sort of taking into account what the population needs, not just what our sort of sector thinks we need. Okay, thank you for that. Mark, can I bring you in?
Yeah, I think I mean, this is a really kind of inspiring debate we're having, and there's some great comments coming in on the chat box, which I know we might come to. But for me, coming back, I think my vision, I think, which is shared with a lot of people, is this, and Marcus was quite right, you know, we've been bought into this probably for 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah. It's this notion of moving from fitness to wellness, and it's this notion that actually, in terms of status for fitness professionals and the facilities that they operate in, is let's have a national wellness service. Let's look at the terminology. I think, you know, if we're really going to value the nation's fitness exercise assets, the gyms in all their various kind of forms and the leisure centres, let's kind of ditch this word fitness. Let's ditch this word leisure. We're about health. We're about wellness. And actually, in terms of status for fitness professionals, you know, I want to see the status for fitness professionals on a par with the status that a physiotherapist has. So how do we do that? It's about training, it's about qualifications, it's about quality standards, all the things we've been talking about, because that's where they should be, because they can have a responsibility for completely turning the curve on the nation's health, on population health, which, let's face it, is going in the wrong direction. We've got the super fit, but we've got a massive amount of people that are getting increasingly more unfit. And it's going to be worse as consequences of COVID and all the economic consequences of that, which will drive down healthy behaviours and everything else. So we need a national wellness service with common standards, delivered by 500,000 fitness professionals that are referred to as health professionals, that have got the status and the credibility, so we can get some investment from government.
Absolutely, and I think I agree, and I think we're back to the point that Mark's made about having a strong leadership, aren't we, within our sector? So strong leaders, a strong leadership from CIMSPA, revisit of those roles, revisit of the terminology, as you say. Is it fitness and leisure centres and personal trainers? Is it more coaching and wellness and community activators and roles that really sort of reflect what the need is within our society? So Mark is probably a good parts to bring you in for the last, comment.
I was just listening to all of this. I think we need to have a clear offer to the health sector and government, and actually a very specific offer. So around this, I would say there's one around prevention and resilience. This is getting us ready for either second spikes or future pandemics around the country, because we know that physical activity improves resilience against infectious disease. The second one is recovery and rehabilitation for people that have been through COVID and need to be well again. And the third point is the health for vulnerable communities, because we've seen that COVID does discriminate. The less well-off Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities are hit harder. People with disabilities are hit harder. So we need to think of those vulnerable communities and what we can do to help specifically their resilience against future infections. One other point I wanted to bring in is the opportunity that's come through COVID on digital. We've had a situation where before lockdown, we had 4.86 million people doing Group X every week. We've gone into lockdown and nearly a fifth of adults in England are doing online exercise programs, most of which are Group X of some description or other. It's a massive growth. So we then got to say, well, how do we sustain that activity level, some of which will be in venues when they're open and some will remain on digital, and we mustn't shy away from that. And the reason I push that is two. One is that we know from the research that people that do online do have greater engagement in classes, but secondarily there are whole communities and sectors whom online just works better. They may be disabled and can't move. They might have caring responsibilities and can't leave the house. They might work shift patterns and can't get to the gym at the right time. So there's actually something here that the nation's been trying out in huge numbers, and we need to make sure we don't just lose all of that online digital comms and capability. I think that's got a whole lot more to grow and get better and engage thousands and thousands of more people.
Thank you very much. Some really, really interesting, really important points. And as with always with these things, whether it's panels or webinars, I always go away thinking, yes, what's next? But how do we do that? What's the action? What's the call to action? How do we, make this not just a really healthy debate, but actually take some action? So maybe if we listen to the questions next, Lucy, you're in charge of filtering through questions. We've got quite a lot of chats and quite a lot of comments, quite a lot of questions, which is great to have that interaction. So should we start there? I know we've been on for an hour and I know people are busy, but I'd really like us to be able to come away with something tangible that we can then have, you know, ongoing conversations with other people about to move this forwards.
Yeah, there's so many questions in there, both in the chat box and on the Q&A box. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of piece together some of the questions that are kind of similar in that Q&A box. There's a lot there about whose responsibility is it for furthering the education of the fitness professional. So obviously we can see Third Space do a massive amount of work to build their trainers up, to give them progression and further education. They obviously put money into their trainers to do that. We've got different problems with the public sector and financing that. The operators can't always do that. And then obviously from the EMD side, looking at a lot of the independent trainers that you represent and work with. So yeah, so looking at who, you know, the funding for the training, where should that come from? What's the responsibility of the operator? And now in a post-COVID world, that, you know, how is that changed as well?
Anybody like to pick that up without me putting my trainer provider hat on? Mark, go on.
Yeah, I just want to make a point about cost, and actually what is the cost, because and this comes back a great point. Someone just quoted Richard Branson, you know, put enough in to train them, but also treat them well enough so that, you know, train them enough so they'll leave, but treat them well enough so they'll stay. And that's that's a business decision, isn't it? Because the cost of training is high, particularly if you've got 2,700 people across the public sector delivering fitness. That's quite a cost. But actually, how do you get best value? Well, what you do is you value your fitness professionals so much that they don't want to leave, that they will stay with you. So the money you've invested in training goes a long, long way. And actually, what they learn is passed on through coaching and mentoring to other people as well within your organisation, because they're staying with your organisation. So that is key to drive down the cost of training and get maximum value from it. And another thing we've touched upon today, but we've not necessarily really gone into any detail, is that by having great people offering a personalised service, not personal training per se, but a personalised service that's really building relationships with your customers, drives retention. We know the driver for retention is all about relationships with customers and giving good guidance, support and advice in the way that the customer wants it. So again, if you're training your staff, then it's a no-brainer to train them and invest in training, because they'll drive retention for you, they'll stay with you and repeat the cost of and avoid the cost of repeat investment in training. So in terms of whose responsibility is it, it's all our responsibility, and it's actually a business decision to do it.
Thanks, Mark. Oh, Lucy, you're on mute.
Yeah, I know. Dog was starting to bark, so I thought I'd better mute myself. So putting that question then on to Josh, obviously Third Space have a model for the personal trainers to move up. Do you see that changing much with COVID, to engage kind of different challenges now from the sector?
I think we're always looking and evaluating on our delivery and our service, I guess. But you know, the stuff that's come out in regards to prevention of illness with exercise, and we've already known this. All of us already known that, so it's within the curriculum anyway. It might just be a heightened kind of. We're going to look at some of the studies potentially that comes out of this, and some of the data that comes. But I think therein lies the problem, where people are asking, well, where's the money going to come for training? In any other sector, when you ask a business, do you train up your employees and do you pay for that? Well, of course we do. Therein lies the problem for me. Like, people asking where's the money coming from, and PTs or even fitness professionals, go into a place where they don't get developed. Therein lies our issue in my eyes, because we're the only sector that doesn't pay for our training of employees, I guess.
Yeah, it goes back to that point, isn't it, where people say, what if we train them and they leave? But the flip side of that is, what if we don't train them and they stay? And then you're stuck with people that are just not delivering the brand and the highest level of education. There's a question here, I think probably directed mainly towards Marcus, but looking at the industry support for the group fitness professionals. So those that are doing a lot of Group X training, used to be one of my jobs way back when, but those doing it as a full-time job, I just did it on the side, those doing it as a full-time job, to do 15 plus classes a week to make the money is hard work on you and your body. So it's kind of getting on some understanding from EMD as well about the support available. And I think when we look at the price per hour for teaching a class of 45 minutes, there seems to be, and this is from one of the questions here, there seems to be a lack of regard from those paying the instructor for the amount of prep work that goes in pre-class. It's not just 45 minutes, it's putting a music list together, it's writing the workout, etc., etc. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know your thoughts on what support can be there for those that are doing it as a full-time job.
Yeah, absolutely, Lucy. We published a paper on this last summer, actually, called "Sweating Your Assets," and it points out a number of factors. Really, one is that group exercise can be a prime income driver for any leisure or fitness operation. I mean, that sounds obvious, but even when you do it down to a income per square meter, it beats the regular gym kind of activity. So there is a very good return on investment through group exercise. And so from that, if you've got the business case, then the other asks we've written in this document, one is train to gain, invest in your staff, give them the right training and the right skills and qualifications, pay them properly as well. Many in the group X sector have not had a pay rise for 10 years, and it's poor. And as a consequence, you can understand why people don't stick with it. It's probably because people love it is why they stick around, but it's not the right way of doing things. They should be paid properly. And then also there's an expansion, which is using the group exercise instructors really as an extension of the sales team, because of their interaction with dozens, sometimes hundreds of customers. They can be a key asset, if you like, in retaining customers and even acquiring new ones. So there's a very clear business case there. In terms of particular support through their governing body, we provide lots of guidance for our members and for the wider community on professional development, on looking after yourself. We run webinars and events like this, where we have experts on to talk about particular topics. So if there's any way I can help individual exercise instructors, please get in touch, and you'll see the resources we've got on our website, and hopefully that will help you.
Any more questions there for us, Lucy, or comment?
Yeah, but it's just kind of, they're all pinging up, and I think you can see in the chat there a lot kind of going on about the self-employed coaches, trainers, PTs, and Group X. One of the questions that's also come up about personal trainers, and I don't know the answer to this, which I'm ashamed to say. Is there a national governing body for personal trainers? Does that sit within EMD to some extent? Where does that support for this, especially the self-employed personal trainer, where does that come from? There's obviously lots of people that can do it, but is there a specific place that we should be pointing personal trainers to for that support?
Marcus, before we go on to Josh,
absolutely.
Could you answer that?
Our claim is to be the NGB for group exercise. So we are focused on the group exercise instructor. We have a number of PTs that join us because they get benefits from it. But I will say, quite clearly, that isn't our focus. We've taken a decision that we need to focus on what we do best and not be too much of a broad church. So I think there is a need for support, but I would say the first place is probably through SimSpa, but it may even need more extras on top of that, really, to give the proper service.
Josh, did you want to come in there, or?
Yeah, so we technically have some voluntary registers, including reps and SimSpa. However, out of all the personal trainers that we've recruited, we don't require them to go on them registers. And the reason being is because, in my eyes, for what we need them for, I don't think at the minute they're fit for purpose. The reason being is because what they do is they ensure that there's rigorous processes for a personal trainer to have qualifications, and that's it. If I ask general public, for instance, do you know how to search up if your personal trainer is qualified? They probably would say no. And then not only that, but in regards to things like the CPD, sort of way in which CPDs are accredited, etc., some are not held in high regard, some are, depending on hours, etc. So look, in my eyes, I think there's a massive need for a register to come out for personal trainers and for fitness professionals that are solely for them and for being able to go out to general public and ensure that the personal trainer has become a professional. I don't honestly think the voluntary registers at this moment in time are necessarily needed for a PT, and that's why we don't hold the biggest value on them as such. However, we are, and our academy is REPS accredited, because we do feel the need to go under external examination in a sense and external quality assurance. But yeah, there's voluntary registers, but in my eyes, I think they need to develop.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? And you know, unfortunately, one we've made at the end, towards the end of the webinar, we could go on into quite a lot of detail about that. I think all I would say really is that, you know, the Chartered Institute have just launched a chartered pathway. You know, they have put a lot of work in over the last few years to create different pathways, and I think for me, unless everybody gets on board and commits to SIMSPS, the Chartered Institute, then we're never going to be any further on. I get your point that it would be great to have a world where there was a register that was actually mandatory that you had to go on, but I think we're still a long way off that. And for me, you know, SIMSPS is at least the start of trying to professionalise the sector, the standards, provide the pathways and the routes, and provide that one point of contact that the public can go to and sort of say, you know, especially post-COVID, how do I know my leisure centre, my instructor is conforming to some sort of recognised standard?
Sorry, just quickly to come in on that. I think the problem is at the moment what SIMSPS has done, and quite rightly, and there's no bad blood against SIMSPS or anything like that. They've mainly engaged the educators, you know, as in the education providers. We are at Third Space, one of the biggest operators in London, and I talk to all the big operators within London, and not once have we been really consulted in regards to say, well, what is it that you would want for your PTs to be valued on this register? And throughout this process,
that would actually, that's a really important point. And I think as I talk about, you know, what can we take forwards from this webinar, you know, I'm always a bit frustrated when we do webinars and then it finishes and you sort of sit there and think, oh yeah, what's going to really happen? I would like certainly to take through a few points. I'm going to watch this back. I'm going to make some more notes because I've not been able to make a huge amount, and revisit the comments along with Lucy. And I think there will be points there that we will take forward. So that's a really valid point, and I think really valid feedback for SIMSPS to hear that more engagement is needed. Absolutely. Guys, it's 1:15. We could go on literally all afternoon, and I knew we could from when we first put together the even pre-COVID, we first put together the detail of the panel. Lucy, can we come back to you just to sort of say if there's any more questions, and then if anybody wants to raise their hand for a last kind of sum up, more than happy to do that. I don't want anyone going away thinking that they didn't quite get to have their say. So if I go back to you, Lucy, just for the last summing up of questions or comments, maybe.
Yeah, there's so many. We're not going to get through them all. We definitely knew this in our prep call yesterday, that this was going to be challenging to keep it to 1:15. It is a big debate, and I think it will be actually a really interesting conversation to have again when gyms can open as well.
Yes, definitely.
I think it would be interesting to look at when the gyms can reopen, how the importance of the trainer shifts then, because we're going to be looking at a very different time initially, getting people back into club. I feel that a lot of the success of clubs reopening, in my opinion, will be on those trainers, whether it's the gym instructors, the personal trainers, the group exercise instructors. People need to feel safe, and generally people will feel safe with people, and I think that it's going to be an interesting time, and I feel that COVID's definitely made us have a look at the importance of our trainer. If we look at when the gyms closed, those 4 walls that we fill with amazing equipment, the best, the highest end kit that we spend millions and millions of pounds on as operators, they do that. It's fantastic. This amazing equipment, they closed. That was gone. All you had left was your branding, your social media, and your trainers delivering virtually. So that's kind of bringing me on to my kind of closing question is, has the importance of the instructor been heightened during COVID, which I personally feel it has, and is that going to continue when gyms reopen? And what do you think operators should be doing to support their staff in delivering that to the to the people walking into those club doors. It's not just about putting up a panel, so wearing a mask, etc., etc. That training of the person, that personable approach, how a club's going to instill that into their coaches. Josh, you want to go first?
Yeah, and our exec team are very much, big strap line is the people are what make the business, and we get behind the people. And from reception to cleaners to concierge to our natural fitness food, all the way up to instructors, we thrive ourselves on the service that we deliver to our members to make sure that they are feeling like they're home and it is their third space, hence the kind of name. And look, I love this industry, but I think what we now need to do is get behind our professionals and get away from the policies to begin with, and just understand that we need to get behind them because they're the ones that are promoting us. So we need to ensure that they've got the correct adequate training, they've got the correct safety, but not only that, they've got the correct security, because that's how they're going to value what they do. And if they value what they do and they're passionate about what they do, that's going to come across day in, day out, whether it's 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. So get behind your guys, whether that's the cleaners all the way up to the trainers, and they'll get behind you.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, the last words from maybe Mark and then Marcus, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's about valuing your people, exactly as Josh said. And there's been a lot of been some questions I can just pick up on this actually that have been coming through about pay and reward. And I think the important point here is, yes, we have to value our workforce. And actually, what's been said time and time again today is, during the crisis, after this crisis, customers want to come in for personalised service. They want to get what they need from the gym, from the leisure centre, and fitness professionals are absolutely key to that, and we need to value them. But in terms of valuing fitness professionals, from a public sector point of view, there are restraints, and the private world of gyms it's in the free market. So you will get paid according to your value and your value that you can bring to that business. The sky's the limit, with what the best fitness instructors can get in the inner cities in London and boutiques and everything else. When I was an operator, people used to come to me and say, we'd be operating leisure centres in the northeast, and they'd say, look, I've got a friend working in a boutique, they're getting £125 a session. Why aren't you paying me more? And the simple answer is because it's a different proposition in the public sector. And if we want to position ourselves in the public sector as allied health professionals funded by the government, like teachers are, like health professionals are, like uniform services are, they have all got set pay rates because it's government money. So we have to take the rough with the smooth. And there needs to be a decision made, I think, going forward about what public sector provision is there to do. And I think it's there to address inequalities and provide a high quality entitlement for the mass population, irrespective of whether they can afford to pay or not. So it's got to be affordable. The private sector is a different proposition. So if I'm an NHS professional in the NHS, I'm going to get paid less than I go into private healthcare. They're two different entities. And I think as a sector and people working in our sector, it's kind of having a comprehension of that. We can't have everything. I finished on a controversial point, which might have upset people.
We're going to have another webinar. Okay, thank you. And finally, Marcus, I don't want you to leave you with no last say. You have the final word. Thanks. And then we'll wrap this up.
Thank you, Elaine. And to come back to Lucy's point, do we think the fitness professionals' role has been enhanced or diminished through COVID? I think the potential is massive now, and the acid test will come over the next 3 months, as assuming that venues open during July. During late July, August, September, the assurances that fitness professionals can give to customers will be absolutely critical here about safety, about cleanliness, about fitness motivation. These are things that are going to make the big difference. So it's vital that we, as a sector and as employers, look after those fitness professionals. We pay them properly, we continue to invest in their training, and we listen to their feedback, because they are right at the front line here of watching and helping and motivating people to get active. We've got to listen to what they say during these 3 months, because they will not be like any other 3 months we ever faced as a sector.